Don't get me wrong, I like this knife, but let me discuss some of the benefits of this knife, the design attributes, and then some of the execution issues they had that make me not carry it. And let me show you something that you may prefer to carry instead. All right, let's talk about it. So this is a knife that I've had for quite a while, a couple of years, and actually really like it. I just don't carry it for a couple of reasons. So this, if you don't know, this is made by a company called Scallywag, and they've been around for a while now. They were recently bought out by Tour Knives, which I have mixed opinions on. But I remember when I was first introduced to this company, and I was trying to do some research to find out, where they're owned, and it was difficult to find any information. They're definitely not American-made knives, or at least they weren't last time I checked. But some of the prices were like American-made prices, so it was a little bit confusing. They do have a kind of a tactical aesthetic, and this knife specifically, they've worked with some knife designers that are here in the United States that I believe designed this knife and one other one, the MDV, which I also have. So I purchased this knife because it was interesting. It was actually on sale, and they've been on sale a few times. I don't think they necessarily sell that well, but they were designed for a very specific purpose, and they're definitely they're almost not knives. This is almost not a knife because of the design, which, let me go ahead and pull it out of here so you can see it. So this has been modified. I reground this section, and I'll get to the reason why, but what this is designed for is a last ditch effort defensive tool, specifically for like military or police. I believe this fits down in like molly webbing, and it's meant to be carried on the front of a plate carrier. And it has this oversized ring, supposedly so that you can, if you're wearing gloves, you can still get your finger through there to retrieve it. And then primarily it's just for stabbing. It's got that acute point. This is made out of D2 steel, which I'll also get to. And it's pretty dang thick. I believe it's at least a 1/4 inch thick. Let me measure it real quick. I'll measure back here where I haven't changed anything. Yeah, it's 1/4 inch, 0.24. I'm sure that's just my calipers. I'm sure it's probably, it's 0.23. So it was probably originally 1/4 inch stock, and they just didn't do much besides round this out and even it up. So it's almost 1/4 inch, 0.23 inches, probably from 1/4 inch stock. Anyway, so the idea, last ditch effort, you're close quarters, you pull this out, and you can use it as a weapon to defend yourself. The part that I've reground here and taken the PDD coating off of, that's the working end. The rest of this is not sharpened down here. So it has like these finger grooves where you can hold it. You don't have to worry about cutting yourself, so you can really choke up on it, or you can choke back and use this ring. It's odd because the ring is not round, it is like oval shaped. And I've got some grip tape on here that helped. It's slick as a bar of soap when I first got it without this grip tape on there. So even though this part is not sharpened, you still had a good chance of slipping up on the edge that was supposedly sharpened and cutting yourself. So I put grip tape on there. It definitely helps with retention. And if you're holding it in like this flail grip, I mean, this gives a little bit of cushion because you have the extra room here, which I'll also get to. All right, so let's start with the things that I really like about it. I like the form factor. I like the sheath is very minimal. It does have like this clip on here, which you can put in your pocket. It's basically friction fit, so it just slides down there, and the friction against the top is what holds it. It's not Kydex. This is like injection molded plastic. And it also has some lashing holes here and here, so you can lash it to your gear if you wanted to. I do like the fact that you can use it with multiple hand positions, like flail grip, or you can really choke up on it, choke back on it. You could hold it with your thumb through the ring, or 2 fingers through the ring, or 1 finger through the ring. Works and it's double-sided. It works from either side. It's completely symmetrical, or at least it was supposed to be. And it's thick. It's got some weight to it, but it's well balanced. It's balanced right in the middle. So those are things I like about it. I like the idea of having a single purpose weapon. It's really just meant for this end right here, because it simplifies your thought process. In a defensive use scenario, there is no thinking. You know what you have to do. You have to retrieve this thing, and you got to put that in, and bad guy. So it's simple, and simple sometimes is best. It's also reversible in the sheath. You can put it in either direction. It's going to work exactly the same. So I like the idea, I like the concept. The execution was not without its issues. Let me get into it. So we'll start from the outside and work our way in. So the clip doesn't have enough retention. These screws are screwed into this plastic. So I can see eventually, and I've had to tighten these up a couple of times. I could see eventually these stripping out and this clip coming off. And it's really long and it's not thick. So it doesn't have much retention. So if you have it around a belt, it will obviously hold, because that's going to clip around the backside of the belt and it's going to snag it on. It's going to hold, so it's going to retain. But if you put it in your pocket, which is actually how I was primarily carrying this, it just doesn't have enough retention here. Any wrinkle in the seam and it'll just widen this out and it'll just slip out. So most of the time when I pull it out, just training with it, the whole thing would come out. But it's not that hard, because you can just sling this and that sheath will come off. So if it was emergency scenario and you yank this out and the sheath came with it, you can either thumb it off, or you could just sling it off, because it's just friction fit. So but that also leads to the other problem, is that it doesn't have a lot of retention on the knife, so you can't hang it upside down, which you would think for a knife that was meant to go on a plate carrier or a latch to gear that you would be able to hang it upside down. I'd be actually worried about this just bouncing out, because it's really not much friction at all. And because it's not Kydex, it's injection molded plastic, the edges on this are just kind of like over time just wearing down, and so the fit gets looser and looser over time. And it will continue to do so, because injection molded plastics is not nearly as durable as Kydex. This would have been better served with a Kydex sheath with a better clip. I would say even multiple options for carrying it, like the Molly strap that some come with, maybe a shorter, stiffer clip for the pocket, or even better, like an Ulti clip, DCC clip. I prefer the DCC clips to the Ulti clips, just because the Ulti clip has a lot of sharp edges on it. It catches on everything, it scratches everything, including your hand when you're trying to reach in and out of your pocket. If you have anything else in your pocket, it just beats the crap out of your hand. Here, I'll show you on this. So these are all sharp edges, which I can obviously sand them down and round them out. But if this is in your pocket, every time you're trying to reach into your pocket, it is just scratching your hand up. It's just a lot of sharp edges. But anyway, that's a separate video. So that's the primary issues from the outside, is that the clip doesn't have enough retention. It's not versatile enough. And this material that this is made out of, this injection molded plastic, is not durable enough. It's just going to continue to get looser and looser, and this is going to end up, not retaining at all. I'm going to have to make another sheath for it. So, all right. Now let's get down to the issues with the actual knife itself. So when let's start with this obvious regrind here. They say that it was not meant to be a knife necessarily so much as a defensive use weapon, last ditch effort defensive use weapon. So it's the grind on it was just super thick. Like, it wasn't even apex. It couldn't cut at all. Like, I remember when I first got it, I could just take this and push this against my hand and drag it, and it wouldn't cut. And I still don't think it really will. I mean, if I really pushed maybe this tip And they did state that, it's not necessarily a cutting weapon. It's meant for the point, but they did attempt. There was like a edge bevel there. So, but it wasn't even apexed. It was still too wide to cut anything. Like literally could just push as hard as I could and drag, and it wouldn't. And I still think I can. It'd be really stupid if I cut myself. But it gets kind of sharp down towards the edge. I'll continue grinding on this. It's just, I set it down for the moment because the whole thing was just way too thick. And I know that like they were trying to give more strength to the tip for stabbing through like soft body armor or whatever. But it was so thick that it didn't even, it was a hindrance to even penetration. Because it really came all the way out here, like almost a full thickness. So it's just, I don't think it requires that much thickness. It's exceeding the capability of the person who's using it to generate force. So, so let me tell you this. This costs $150. And I haven't checked their website recently, but last time I checked, which was probably earlier this year, they were still $150, and it's made in China, from what I can tell, because every company that makes stuff in the United States or a company other than or a country other than China, they put it all over the blade. They're going to tell you if it's made in Taiwan, because Taiwan has a better reputation in general than China, for knives at least. If it was made in Japan or a European country, even South America, they would be disclosed. They would say where it was made, but I couldn't find anything on their website. I couldn't find anything in the packaging. There's just no mention of where it's made. And so I'm assuming it's made in China. It's definitely not made in the United States. And it's made out of D2, which is pretty popular steel to use in China, especially now. So the grind was just, other than it just being very dull, it was completely uneven. Like there was no symmetry. And I've tried to grind it out, but you can still see that one side is like way thicker than the other side. It like it comes out here and then goes back in. It's just completely like wonky and uneven, and not even from like that. Even if they were trying to like offset it, like do an offset grind, there's no consistency even from like this side to this side, like and I've tried to grind most of this out, but it was just so wonky. I'm gonna have to take off like a significant amount of material. And I was trying to, at least maintain some of the original grind, but it's just wonkiness, like between this bevel and this bevel. They're different heights, and you can see like this part comes up to here, and this is wider here, it's thicker here, and it's just very, very poorly ground. And this part, it's I don't know if they like CNC'd the handle and tried to hand grind I don't know what happened with it. I don't know that much about Chinese manufacturing, but so that was the other issue. Is it's one thing if it's an intentional design decision, but it's a bit annoying on a $150 knife when it's just poorly executed like that. It makes you question, the manufacturing quality. And I have the other MDV. I had to regrind that too because the edge was so burned. First of all, it was completely dull too, and that was meant to be a knife. That's meant to be like a everyday carry / defensive use knife. I'll do a video on that as well, but that one was completely dull too. I could do the same thing and just drag it across my hand. It wouldn't even cut. It would not cut paper, and it's chisel ground, which is supposed to be very, very like sharp, and that was not. It was completely dull, and I was cutting cardboard with it, and like the edge was like chipping, and the tip like chipped off, and I'm like, I figured. I know exactly what happened with it. Is they ground it too fast and hot, and it burned the edge. So after I had to completely reprofile the edge, and then I could sharpen it, and now it's razor sharp, and it has remained razor sharp as a chisel ground blade should be. So, but I had to grind back a good bit of that because they had burned the edge so bad, which also tells me that there's an issue with the quality control in the manufacturing facility that's making these. And the price is just not in line with their quality control. And I have because I like the tactical aesthetics of their knives and the branding, basically. I think it's cool. So, and as a knife collector, I have a lot of knives that I just have because I think they're cool. So this is, I knew after purchasing the first one, I was like, there's quality control issues, but I'll give it another shot. Like I said, I bought a lot of these on sale. So, and I still enjoy. It's still going to be, it's still going to do what it needs to do. It's a pokey piece of steel. But I just think at that price point that there should be better quality control. And recently they've been bought out by Tour Knives, which I would say, well, Tour has, a good reputation for quality control, and their fit and finish on most of their knives is excellent. So if they're overseeing this production, then it should improve the quality control. However, Tour knives are notoriously overpriced for the materials and compared to the competition, because American manufacturing is obviously more expensive, and Tour knives are American made. As far as I'm aware, they're American made. They're better owned. I think it's a fine company. I just think they've fallen into they have a very niche market of military and police. So they have established that name, kind of like Spyderco or Benchmade. And we all know about the Benchmade tax. So I think they've just fallen into that same, they're kind of the big name in military and police as far as fixed blades, defensive use fixed blades. And I love their knives. I just think they're about 30% overpriced. So now that they own Scallywag, and this was overpriced Chinese manufacturing, what is that going to indicate for the price of these and quality control? So are they going to increase quality control and maintain the price? I highly doubt it. So if the quality control issues are fixed, then I would assume the price of these is going to go up, and they were already overpriced for Chinese made knives with low quality control. The designs, like I said, the designs are good, but there's a mismatch between the quality control, the price, and the place where they're manufactured. So back to the knife. Okay. So really dull, too thick. The next biggest issue was what I corrected with the grip tape, which is it's super slippery. So they rounded, it's very comfortable. They rounded out all of these edges. It's chamfered, or however you want to call it, but everything is nicely sandblasted, I'm assuming, to be very smooth. So that makes it comfortable if you're really jamming it into something. But it also is super slippery, like a bar of soap, and they have this PVD coating on there, which I think we'll get to that. But so it would just slip. It was like, if you just try to grab it and push into something, your hand starts slipping, and it's slippery, so there's nothing you can do about it. It's super slippery, especially if your hands are sweaty. Out here in the shop, it's about 90 degrees right now and humid, so I'm nice and sweaty. But so I had to put this grip tape on there just to be able to hold on to it, which corrected that issue. So now I can really jam it in and stuff, and just a little bit of texture here and there, and it makes the world of difference. They maybe could have put some jimping in here, or put a coating on there that has like the coating that Tops uses, like that grippy coating, texture coating, instead of this smooth PVD. That would have been much better, and probably wouldn't have had that issue. That goes back to the quality of manufacturing and what's available through their manufacturer. So the other issue that I have is just, I get the idea that this ring is double XL, so that if you're wearing thicker military gloves, you can still get your finger in there to retrieve it. But it's a little bit confused on the design, because normally if a knife has a ring on it, then is assumed that you're going to be able to use that for not only retrieving the knife, because you don't have to like retrieve it and then reposition your hand. There's no point in quickly pulling a knife out if then you have to reposition your hand, because now you're wasting time. You can like use your thumb and yank this out and it's in a usable position, but look at the gap that is below your thumb, so your thumb is not able to be used to stabilize unless you pull it out and put it on top. But if you yank it out and you're squeezing for dear life, I mean, are you going to pull your thumb out and then you're repositioning at that point? And because it's so wide here, like this is a position that will force your hand to slip down, because if you squeeze here and this is narrower, then it's going to slide down. So as you jam it into something, you're squeezing, your hand is slipping down, and then you have that pressure. That's a recipe for disaster. For pulling out, yeah, then you want this wideness. But in my opinion, if this is meant to be used in the reverse grip, then the power of your grip should be here, and this is the hardest part to grip because of the ring being so large. And with some ring knives, you can use your fingers and wrap around and grip in. But once again, I have pretty big hands. I wear a size large to extra large. Your fingers are floating because it's just too much space. There's nothing to grab onto. Your hands are hitting here and here, and that's not an advantageous grip because you've got too much space here. You're not enough space here, like to really clamp down, and then too much space in here. So I mean, how many knives, if you just look at the profile, how many knives do you see with a super wide symmetrical back end and then a narrow front end, and then that's just not a knife design, like a handle design that you would expect to see. I mean, like this is one of my knives, and this part is wider around the pinky because your pinky's shorter, and then these parts here for you to go between your fingers and you grip, and normally the back is flat so that you can really get the friction against your palm. Like this is the way the human hand is shaped, so when you grip it, it feels secure. And you want it like flatter this way and wider this way and narrower this way so that it fits inside of your hand and orientation with your fingers. I mean, that's even in the reverse grip, your hand is still shaped the same. It's just normally these 2 points are going to be the same. This is going to be relatively flat. You're going to have a curled in section here that goes in your palm, especially with a shorter knife handle like this, so you can go right into your palm. It's basic ergonomics for knife making. The handles are just as important as the blade, and it has to make sense. Like you have to be able to grab it and be like, yeah, that's comfortable. That's comfortable. It doesn't. I mean, you're not fighting it. You're not fighting the knife. This, grab it and you're like, this is awkward because this. If I squeeze, then my pinky's on top of this. So where is my hand supposed to be? In this narrow area, around this awkward shape that doesn't orient the blade? And then you have this area here where you're like, okay, which fingers is it supposed to be like this? Because like if this is for your first two fingers and your next fingers go there, then now I'm grabbing, well, there's nothing left there. Like you just got this little point sticking out. And you wrap around the part that's supposed to be sharp, even though it's not. Where's this finger here, and then the pinky kicked out like you're holding a champagne flute. I mean, I've tried just about every grip that I can imagine, and the thing that makes the most, and if you're holding it like this, well, it's a dagger, so it's meant to be held like this with your thumb across the top. It's too wide back here. The ring is just too wide. Your fingers do all kinds of wonky shit trying to get a grip on it, and they're just not able to. And it's not the size of the hand. It's literally just the way it's shaped. It just doesn't make sense in context of a human hand. Air compressor. This makes this is probably the most comfortable grip. It's like, instead of thumb capped, you're like thumb in, because, you know, at least hits some of the right areas. But then again, like, I'm using my own finger to brace my thumb because there's nothing underneath here to brace against. This, you can kind of like do this if you want to use like a flail grip. I mean, this is not bad, but you have to like kind of tuck your fingers around into the ring so that you have like some sort of pressure here to stabilize it. Otherwise, you know, if that's on the outside, then this is just, there's no stability. And when you go to jam it, it's just gonna crack your knuckle. And you can see there, it was wearing me out pretty good when I was doing the stabbing test, just because if you're not real braced up in there, then it just bam, bam. And that's because there's too much space. Every time you stick with it like that, it just, same thing with this. You got a stick in your hand, just shoop. Thank God it's not sharp. So even with that very acute point and it being double-edged, supposedly, you know, it's just too thick. In the stab test, you know, I was having to stab it pretty hard to get it to penetrate like up to here. And considering there's supposed to be sharpened edges, it should be able to like penetrate really well. But that was hard cardboard, like multi-layer cardboard, very hard, like you can stand on it and it won't bend. But the point is penetration. So that's not aiding, that thickness is not aiding the penetration, which brings me to the, you know, another point, which is the steel choice is the wrong choice. They chose D2 steel, which is a steel that's known for edge retention. It's known for being able to put a pretty coarse, sharp edge on the knife, and you can cut and cut and cut, and it retains that edge. It stays sharp, but they never sharpened this in the first place. D2 steel is brittle compared to other stainless steels or high carbon steels like 80CR, 5160, or 15N20, or 1075 or 1095. Those knives, or 3V even, like, or 14C28N. There's so many knives, so many knife steels I could say would serve this better. You'd want a tough steel, a steel that has high toughness, like 14C28N would have been a good choice, and it would still be in the budget category like D2, because that steel is very tough and it's 100% stainless. D2 is not 100% stainless, and if this is something that's meant to be carried on your gear, that's the reason they had to put that coating on there, because it's not stainless. So it will rust, and if you're out, you know, in the field with this on the front of your plate carrier, it's gonna rust, and there's holes in the sheath for water or blood drainage, I guess. I don't know, but it's not a stainless steel, and it's very brittle. Not very brittle, but it's more brittle than many other options out there, and that brittleness is in exchange for edge retention. But this is not an edged weapon. It has edges, but they're so thick that you don't even have to worry about edge retention, because it doesn't cut anything in the first place. So they picked the wrong steel, and then they had to put this slippery coating on there because it was not stainless. Which goes back to my question of who's manufacturing it, what capabilities do they have, what is their quality control? Because it feels like what they had was D2, and so they went with D2. Don't put a $150 price tag on a knife that doesn't have, you know, a solid philosophy of use, and this doesn't. It's cool design, but there's some big problems that we've gone over here. So let me show you something that I think you might want to carry or buy instead of this, that has very similar philosophy of use, and it's just going to work better. And it is, shameless plug, one of my knives. So this is the Growler V2, and it doesn't have as thin of a sheath. It's a little bit wider. It's not going to fit within inside of Molly, not in this current configuration. I could come up with something. I mean, if somebody went to my website and they requested this knife, but they wanted a sheath that could fit within Molly, I can make one. Absolutely, I can, and I don't charge any extra for that stuff. I would encourage anybody that if they will like one of my knife designs, but like, man, I wish this was a little bit different. Do it. Just go to the custom request on the website, tacticalpracticaldefense.com, and you can say, hey, I like that Growler knife, but do this instead, and you're not going to pay any more for that because I make almost everything to order. You're getting like a custom knife for not a custom cost. Really the knives I have on my website, all the photos and the models, those are just the base. Like you can, and that's going to be your price, whatever, unless there is something that you request that just costs a lot more, like something very specific, like a specific handle material or a specific seal. If it costs a lot more, then I'll let you know, like, hey, sure, I can do that for you, but it's going to cost this much instead. And it's only going to be the difference in cost for me. So it's not because the materials are not the most expensive part for me. It's my time. So if you wanted something like this knife, but you wanted it to fit within MOLLE webbing, then I can absolutely figure out how to make a sheath that will fit within MOLLE webbing. It would not be that hard. I would just have a clip on it like this, or this oldie clip, and I can just use a spacer when I'm pressing my kydex so that there's a place in the metal for me to attach the hardware without it scratching the crap out of the knife, and then just move that to the center. And then just so I can make this, I'd just make this a little slimmer. I'd use rivets, and then that would be it. It would fit within MOLLE webbing because the blade is not that wide. It's about the same width. It's exactly the same width. So this is my knife, the Growler, and let me tell you about the philosophy of use. And I tested these two side by side, and in my opinion, this knife performed better in every single way than this knife did. When I designed this knife, this is the V2. The V1's a smaller version. When I designed this knife, it's the same philosophy of use as this. It's a last-ditch effort, like a get-off-me tool, as I call it. This is meant something to be carried that you can carry with you all the time. It's very fast to retrieve. It has multiple hand positions that you can use, and it's going to be effective in gross motor movements. So like whatever's natural, whichever way you pull it out and use it, it's going to be effective. So let me go over some of the things about this knife that I prefer over this knife and why you might too. So first of all, it does have an oversized ring. And don't worry about the ring not being perfectly symmetrical. This is the prototype, so I have the capability of making it perfectly symmetrical. But it's an oversized ring so that you can use it with gloves. You can see there's plenty of extra space there. In fact, let me go get a glove and I'll show you. So this is just one of the gloves I use here in the shop, but I just want to show you that there's no problem. There's still extra space, even with this, thick glove on. There's plenty of space to get your finger in there. It's not, this one's all beat up and mangled, but there's no problem getting that on off. So the only thing that's catching is this part that's frayed here, but when they got the rubber grip on there. So I intentionally made that ring oversized so that you could, if you wanted to, if you're wearing gloves, then you could still get it quickly. So it has the oversized ring that you can use to retrieve it by wrapping your hand around it and pulling it out with your finger through the ring. Now, you see how this ring is in the center? It's centered, aligned with the center of the knife. So what does that do to your hand? It pushes the first finger down and raises the middle finger. And even if you put both fingers through there, now these fingers are up here, these fingers down there. It just doesn't line up with the way your hand grips, because your fingers are up here and the center of your palm is here. So this ring is offset to one side so that when you grip it, your fingers are in the same orientation that they would be naturally, because the handle is lower than the ring. See, the bottom of the handle is lower than the bottom of the ring. That's because that orients with your hand. So it's meant to fit your hand, not trying to make your hand fit the knife. When you have this with your finger through it, there is a place here for your thumb to go on top. Where to see how this is rounded. So your finger doesn't have a place to naturally go to. It's just the same problems we were going over before. It's just very awkward to figure out where your hand is supposed to be. And when you're moving quickly and you have high adrenaline, your fingers are just not going to be searching. There's no question where your finger is supposed to go. You pull it out and it just goes to the right place because it's shaped like its function. You also have so many grips that you can use with this knife. You can use it like you would grip a regular knife. Now this is an edge end design, this is a cog design, so as you can see the edge is on this side. Now I'm sorry if it's all scratched up, I was testing it and beating the crap out of it. I haven't sharpened it or anything. This is 5160 steel. I'll get back to that, let me stay on track. So your hand naturally falls into the correct position. Every single piece of this aligns with where I want your fingers to be to give you maximum control. You have this tab here that's going to allow you to pull that into your hand, so you're not worried about torque forces or anything like that. It just naturally wraps in your hand. It's comfortable. It's immovable. You have such a great grip on this in whatever position you hold it in. If you decide to hold it in this position, this aligns with the shape of your palm, as you can see. So in this position, it gives you thumb control, indexing points. In this position, it aligns with the shape of your palm, so that and your thumb falls right here in the correct place. Your fingers can wrap into that ring, so you have maximum control in this position as well. And you can torque it left and right. It's wider this way, so you can give torque if you need to get it out or just want to make a larger hole. The flail grip, also you have this flat area for control. You have this area right here where your thumb can fall, and you have control. Because that flail grip can be challenging. You try to poke something, and if it's not, it can just put all the force directly on your finger, like this one does, if you don't have multiple points of control. And this, you have multiple points of control. The thumb and the middle finger and the first finger, there's not so much space back there that your fingers are slamming back and forth. You can lock it into this position. The tension here and here and here locks it into that position. If you're jamming and pulling, you have this area here that is in contact with your hand, so that you can generate torque on that pull, which is the Pakal grip. You jam and pull. The idea of it being a last ditch fight for your life, it's going to be close range, and I think that Pakal grip is the most effective close range defensive tactic, because it's natural for you to pull. If you're grappling, you can just jam and pull, and you can generate so much more force. I made this blade hollow ground because it is 1/4 inch thick steel. Let's see what mine ended up being after. What did I do with my calipers? All right, right in front of my face. So let's see. 0.24. So actually wider than this one. 0.23. I'm sure we both started with 1/4 inch stock, but I just did less remove on this handle. So it is 0.24 inches back here, which is thick. That's for the durability. But I knew that to correct for that thickness, I wanted that durability, that thickness, then I'm gonna have to make it hollow ground so that it can come down to a sharp edge. Because I don't think there's any point in carrying something like this and not putting an edge on it. Even if, that poking is gonna be the more effective technique, having that edge is obviously something that's very useful in a fight for your life. Just being able to drag and pull and sever tendons or arteries. That's an important part of it. Yeah, of course you have that point, but you've got that pull too. Poke in, pull down. Much more effective. The flail grip, if you're using it in this flail grip, you can swing this and use this edge. You can generate so much kinetic energy by swinging this around your finger that this edge is going to cut very effectively. When that's spinning around, you're accelerating. So not only is it like a regular swing, but you have the extra acceleration. It's like the flick of a fingers when you're throwing a baseball. It's like the whip of an arrow when you're shooting out of a bow. So that swing is generating increased acceleration on top of the acceleration of your arm, over double the acceleration. So that translates into kinetic energy. So when it hits, it's going to pop whatever it hits. And this hollow ground edge is extremely effective in cutting. Let me, well, I have some B-roll footage of me cutting after beating the crap out of this thing. This is 5160 steel. This is D2, 5160 steel. Both are not stainless. I chose 5160 steel. It is a spring steel, but it has plenty of carbon content. It's a very good hard use steel for knives. This thing I heat treat myself, and it is well over 60 HRC. I don't have a hardness tester. They're very expensive and very large. It wouldn't fit my shop. It wouldn't be worth the cost. I know how hard this is because I am the one who ground it and sharpened it. I know it's probably around 62 HRC. I do a great job heat treating my steel. I do every knife individually. I don't do batches. I heat treat, quench, and temper each knife individually, so I can put a file against it, make sure it's hard. When I'm grinding it, I know exactly how hard it is. I don't burn my edges. I finish all of the sharpening by hand to make sure that we can get a nice acute edge on it, a nice acute point, without burning it, so that you're not going to have chipping issues. This 5160 steel is super tough. This came down to a very acute point. There's a very acute point. Very sharp. This has not been sharpened. I was throwing this, literally throwing it in the backyard. It was sticking in the dirt, hitting all kinds of stuff. Not a chip, not a roll, nothing. On this very, very thin edge. I know everybody wants to know the behind the edge thickness, but it's kind of hard with calipers. I mean, it's not accurate. You know, I think a lot of manufacturers don't put the behind the edge thickness on there because there's going to be micro variations in different parts of the blade, just depending on what kind of grind it has. And, you know, they don't want to be accused of lying. And if two knives, you know, even if they're producing it, you know, factory style where they have very high tolerances, two knives could have a slightly different edge thickness, and that's just opening them up to liability or accusations of, you know, false claims. So I think that's, you're dealing within hundredths of an inch. So that's why manufacturers, I believe, why they don't put behind the edge thickness. And it also depends on how you measure it, because you could have a customer that gets it and the manufacturer measured it with very, you know, like highly sophisticated calipers right behind the edge, and they got one number, and then you have somebody like me who's got these cheap Harbor Freight calipers, and they come and measure it, and they're like, oh no, and they're measuring it way up here, and they're like, oh no, that's 3 times what they said, you know. And then that's gonna lead to poor customer satisfaction. The manufacturer would rather you get it in your hands and cut stuff with it. If they say it's thin behind the edge and then you cut something with it and it cuts really well, then that experience is more valuable than knowing the exact hundredths of an edge behind or thickness behind the edge. Maybe they could come up with some sort of classification system so that you would have an idea of how thick it is behind the edge, like class A edge, class B edge, class C edge, whatever. Just thinking out loud. I can tell you this one is very thin behind the edge, and I'm going to try to get my calipers, the cheap calipers, as close as I can. Let me zero it. As close as I can to the edge. And these only go down to the 10th, so it's, you know, they don't even go down to the 100th. I mean, I think that's it. Even if I twist it just a little bit. I mean, that's his 0.01, so that would be a, you know, 10/100ths behind the edge. If I hold it there and push it in, yeah, I mean, that's about right, I guess. About 10/100ths behind the edge. That's thin. You know, some of those super sliced EDC ones, I think the most small bendness I've seen behind the edge is like 0.8100s. Is it thousands? It's thousands. 80,000, whatever it is. 0.008 thousandths. Anyway, this one's 0.01, so it's very thin behind the edge, and it's hollow ground, so you know it stays thin till about right here. You can see that grind line right there. That's where the hollow goes, right there. So it's a slicer. I got a little piece of paper here. You've seen the test by this point. I was beating the crap out of it, jamming it through cardboard, yanking on it, and that cardboard tube is for shrink wrap. And it had a a plastic layer, like a thick, not shrink wrap layer, but like a thick plastic around it below, right at the end of the shrink wrap, and that is like that cardboard's darn near a quarter-inch thick, and it's tough. Like it's super tough. Like this was very difficult to go through this. This pierced so easily through that cardboard because the difference in the tips, like even though this is double, quote unquote, double edge and has that acute point on it, more acute than this penetrated much better because it's so much thinner behind the edge, and it has this knife would not survive this knife would not survive that if it was made out of D2. That's why I don't use D2. I'm going to use mostly high carbon steels or AEBL or 14C28N, something that's got high tough. I'll probably get some 3B pretty soon to start making some defensive use knives, because that toughness is extremely important for a defensive use knife. You don't necessarily need the most edge retention for something like this, especially. You're not using this to open mail. You're going to pull it out and use it, hopefully never, but maybe one time. This is after absolutely abusing this knife, literally throwing it into the dirt. I mean, I was trying to see if, as a goof, which one would throw better, and I stuck that one pretty easily, but this one, obviously, it's not a throwing knife. It still cuts. I mean, it's humid out here. This paper is kind of soft, but yeah, it's still going to cut. And if you don't know, it's not nearly as sharp as it was before I was slinging around the backyard. If you don't know, cardboard is very hard on knives. I guarantee you I could strop this a little bit and it'd be right back to where it needs to be. But it's still cutting this one. This one doesn't cut at all. And I'm not flubbing it here. Like, this literally doesn't cut. Doesn't even start to bite. And that's after I've tried to increase the sharpness. It was even more dull than that before. Cardboard is extremely abrasive. It's full of silica. See how it, like, this was actually throwing it in the dirt. Probably hit a rock or something. Hit some little scratches. But that's just surface scratches. Those I can literally buff out. No problem. The cardboard's full of silica, so it destroys an edge. Silica is glass. Silica is little tiny pieces of glass, which all glass is harder than steel. There's no HRC for glass because it will break before it dents, because that's how hard glass is. Glass is infinitely more hard than steel. There's no steel that's going to cut glass. You can use tungsten carbide or tungsten, you can just really score it. That's just microchip. So glass is extremely hard, and silica is made out of glass. So it's just glass beads. It's full of, cardboard's full of silica beads, which is made of glass. So as you're cutting through that, that's just tearing away at your sharpened edge. But this still has an acute edge on it. This still can cut. That soggy paper really wasn't doing it too much justice, but obviously, you know, I keep my knife sharper than this, but absolutely would cut a fool. You know what I mean? Especially with that hollow ground edge. So in and out of the pocket, this is just going to be better. You have less sticking up out of the pocket with this. You know, this is how deep it'll go. So this entire thing, if you're gonna carry it in your pocket, this entire part right here is sticking out of your pocket, whereas this is much less. Indexes perfectly. You know exactly where you're grabbing, what you're grabbing. Oh, you can use this, like, if you grab, this is actually the most comfortable and easiest way to use this knife on quick deployment. You just grab it like this, like a punch dagger. This works perfectly. This distributes the weight evenly on your palm. It feels like it was meant to be used like this. When you punch, that force goes right there and distributes over your palm. It does not hurt. It fits the shape of your palm. It's nice and round right here. You have excellent torque control because you have the ring aids in that torque control, because you can get your fingers in there and not having to put them in a weird position. And that prevents it. One of the problems with push daggers is when you go to punch, it wants to roll this way or roll this way. And that's because they're typically, you know, short this way and wide. This one has the appropriate amount of height and width to fit the pocket in your hand. This fits perfectly in that pocket, and it has the ring there for additional traction from these two fingers. It's like your hand just molds around it. So you don't have any problem with torque in either direction. Like, I'm pulling as hard as I can, not as hard as I can, pulling extremely hard, pushing extremely hard, and there's just no problems with torquing. Laterally, you have the brace of your two fingers, brace of these fingers, the thumb can wrap around here, the palm of your hand. You've just got so many points of contact for control. This is an excellent way to use this. Just as a punch dagger, you can use that in an emergency scenario. Pull it out and start punching. It's gonna be extremely effective. You can also hold it like this. This part right here will wrap up around the top of your hand. It's a little bit different angle. It puts us in, this would be more for like, if you want to use it for slashing from that punch dagger position. You can use it between your middle fingers. Same thing. It's not quite as comfortable here, but if that's the way you grab it, it will work. You know, you have more control right here because that's the way I designed it to fit that pocket. You have more control right here. This is the way I would say that I would use it in a defensive scenario. But if you get it in this position, it's still extremely usable, not uncomfortable at all. It's just slightly different ergonomics, but it still fits. And the reason it works in so many positions is because the design was meant to mimic the shape of your hand. So as you use it in different positions, it's still, your hand is still going to fall in those natural positions. It is all of these different angles and shapes are meant to work with your hands naturally. That's what you get when you have someone like me who makes knives by hand in the United States and knows how to use them. Designing a knife is that you have someone that through the entire process of not only designing but manufacturing, making the knife myself by hand, I can make adjustments to, if I want this to be here, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to move that there. If I want this position, this to be narrower, I can do that. And the entire time I'm making it, I'm gripping and holding and testing all these different positions and saying like, well, if I reduce this area here, is it going to make it, is it going to rotate the knife in an awkward angle in another position? Like, how is this going to work with me with drawing it out of the sheath? Because I use knives so much and train with them with defensive tactics, I know the things that need to be considered, and I'm considering all of those things when I'm making it. What you end up with is a knife that is function over form. It's not only does it look tactical, but that was never the intention. The intention is for it to have the capability, the durability, Use the correct materials. And you can still use this for opening packages and stuff if you want to. I mean, if you carry this, you really don't have to carry it on the knife. If you need to open packages, you can just hold like this, and you can still get that tip down. Open the package. Those are not high stress scenarios. Opening packages or whatever, cutting up your food, that's not a high stress scenario. What's a high stress scenario is yanking this out of your waistband and having to use it to defend yourself. Having multiple options for grips so that you yank it out. It's not an ideal hand position. It's still going to go to work. You're not going to drop it. You're not going to cut yourself with it. I mean, you may cut yourself with it, but that's on you. It just works. I was a knife collector and user before I was a knife maker. And the only reason I decided, one of the reasons I decided to start making my own knives is because of knives like this, which I really liked, but I'm like, man, some of these things just don't make sense. I wish this was different. I wish that was different. And I started modifying knives before I started making knives, but there's only so much you can do when you're modifying. The craziest part is this knife is cheaper than this knife. When these go live on my website, these are going to be $119. American made, 5160 steel, heat treated by myself, ground by myself. Every single one of these are made by my hands. Here's an ulti-clip. Just an ulti-clip, that's American made. That's like $15. It cost me the same as it cost everybody else. 15 bucks for that ulti-clip. It's real Kydex. Kydex is not cheap. You can buy imitation Chinese Kydex, but real Kydex is not cheap. It's like, I don't even want to go into how much things cost, because my goal at this point is to get my knives in people's hands. I'm not going to make a profit off of this, having another job. I want to make knives that people are going to carry and that people are going to use. And that if God forbid something happens and you need to use it to defend yourself, it's going to be capable of doing so. So visit my website, tacticalpracticaldefense.com. So tactical practical plus it has defense.com. Follow me on Instagram, it's Tactical Practical Defense. You can follow me on TikTok, it's Tactical Practical Defense. Put a lot of videos of knives I'm working on. The website's going to be updated soon. This is not on there. This is not on there. There's several knives that need to be added to it. If you want this knife, this is the Growler V2. Growler, Growler. Go to the website. Go down to the bottom. It says submit a custom request. Just put in your information in the subject line. You can just put, I want the Growler V2. And I'll put your name down, and as soon as I start cranking up production on these, I still gotta do more testing. I've gotta finalize the process. I gotta make sure that I have plenty of ulti-clips and materials. Once I start making these, which is gonna be very soon, the more orders that come in, the more it's gonna motivate me to really get cranking on them. I'll put your name on the list, and when it's your turn, start making your knife, I will send you an invoice. You pay for that invoice, the knife will be in the mail within probably 2 days, and a BD within probably 5 days from the time you pay for it. So it's fast turnaround. I'm cranking them out as fast as I can. Working 10 plus hours a day on top of my regular job on my days off. So I appreciate if you would go to the website, check out what I have. If anything tickles your fancy, buy it. Or submit a custom request and tell me what you want. Talk to y'all later.